If the San Francisco 49ers and wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk head towards a split, it is entirely San Francisco's fault. We got all of that and much more on today's episode of Locked On NFL.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, football fans, and welcome into another episode of Locked On NFL. It's Tuesday, so you've got your host, Luke Braun at Luke Braun NFL, myself, Ross Jackson at Ross Jackson Nola, your two best friends who love covering football and making it better for you every single day. Thank you very much for being here with us on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's episode of Locked On NFL, we're going to get into our yike and our like, what we liked, what we didn't like from the week, including smoke detector chirps, how relatable they are. Yeah, you're getting old. Stop asking. And of course, Carolina, they just can't seem to have anything easy. We're also going to take a look at T. Higgins, who's staying with the Cincinnati Bengals, but probably not for long. And to kick us off, the San Francisco 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk are not doing well, apparently. And in our opinion, it's not Brandon Aiyuk's fault. We appreciate you very much for being here and for making us your first listen of the day every day, and for being an everydayer here on the Locked On NFL podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers are going to get $200 in bonus bets by winning any $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets by winning any $5 bet. Just head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Luke, it was earlier on Monday, where San Francisco 49ers wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk was on a FaceTime call with Washington Commanders new quarterback, Jaden Daniels, where he said the quote of, when talking about the San Francisco 49ers, said, quote, "They don't want me back." Or rather, they said they don't want me back.
They said they don't want me back. Wow.
Yeah, this feels like a big-time fumble by the San Francisco 49ers, man.
I do feel compelled to point out that clip, as it was posted, was out of context, right?
True.
Could have been about anything, grain of salt and all that. Feels hard to like imagining another context feels like you're just making up like an excuse or whatever, but it should be mentioned, grain of salt. But that said, if that's true, if the San Francisco 49ers are like, we're done with you and we're going to trade you away, oof. And I wonder, they have Kittle, he's getting up there. They have McCaffrey if he's healthy. They have Debo if you get whatever you get out of him. So maybe they feel like they're just so set with the skill players, and paying another one maybe isn't worth it or whatever. But that feels like it totally ignoring the signal from their 2023 season, right, and that Super Bowl run. Aiyuk was way more important to that team than Debo Samuel. Like, right? Am I out of line?
No, not at all, because you have to look at the other things that Brandon Aiyuk did. His contributions as a blocker and a wide zone run system, all these other things.
Insanely important for Shanahan specifically.
Yeah,
like Shanahan specifically cares about that a lot. So yeah, that it feels like you just pay Debo and maybe you're stuck with that. And now you're like, well, we can't pay another wide receiver, which I think those sort of guidelines are just leading people astray. And I don't know. I heard a lot about you can't pay a wide receiver this much with covering Justin Jefferson's contract negotiation.
Right, of course.
Hearing it about, Higgins and Chase. We'll talk about that
Miami
a little later.
As well.
Miami, like everybody's like really worried about paying wide receivers and all that. And I think we've lost the plot a little bit. The ideal team is not the one that pays the right amount of wide receivers. It's the one that has the best players. And if you have one of the best and you think he's worth it, you got to stay. So you have the numbers in front of you for like what's been reported they're actually fighting over, right?
Yeah, so Jeremy Fowler's numbers report that the San Francisco 49ers were willing to offer him $26 million a year on a contract, which, I mean, you look at, and anyway, his request.
That's a low ball.
Yeah. Because his request is upwards of $30 million, which is right in line with what Amon-Ra St. Brown, Detroit Lions wide receiver, just got. And you could argue that Aiyuk, just as we mentioned, his contributions as a blocker, his contributions as a yards after catch threat, his contributions as a 3-level threat, the ability to be able to move him around, his fit within that system, you might be able to make the argument that he's more valuable to the San Francisco 49ers than an Amon-Ra St. Brown type would be available to the San Francisco 49ers, or maybe I'm not going to say he's more
to the
valuable
49ers,
to the 49ers.
Because Amon-Ra is like going to be the Lions offense.
He's the guy, right? Yeah. I'm never going to say that somebody is more important than Amon-Ra St. Brown is to the Detroit Lions, but in that scheme, in that system, it feels like Brandon Aiyuk, this should be a shoe-in decision with raising salary caps and gambling money coming and all this stuff. I will say, though, San Francisco is presently $40+ million over the salary cap for next season, and covering a team as I do, which that is nothing more than small potatoes.
Light work.
It's doable. You can easily make it happen if you want to make it happen.
Yeah. Okay. That puts him in line. If he got, let's say they split the difference and he got 28 mil a year. That's Jalen Waddle. That's Devonta Smith. Those are both the wide receiver 2s on their team, but they're high-end wide receiver 2s that would be wide receiver 1 somewhere else. That sounds kind of fair. And the fact that Brandon Aiyuk, with his ask, isn't really viewing himself in a different light, right? Like, you come to the table not with what you think you're worth, but what you think you're worth plus $2 million. So it feels like he's coming to the table with that understanding of, I know that I am not the main receiving option on this team, which kind of wasn't even true sometimes. Right. He was the main guy sometimes. So it kind of feels like he's already coming into this underselling himself, and the 49ers are just too worried about the pie chart. That's the way I feel. Or he was talking about something. Maybe he was talking about his Fortnite team. His League of Legends team didn't want him back. He wasn't an adequate 80 carry.
I think the other thing too, I love your usage of Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle in this equation, because if you think about it, Philadelphia paid both of its wide receivers, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith. That's where Devonta Smith landed on that sort of line. The Miami Dolphins, who we mentioned earlier, paid both their wide receivers. Tyreek Hill already had his extension, but then turned around and also paid Jalen Waddle. So there you go. There's another situation where you talk about paying 2 wide receivers. San Francisco 49ers walking into a very similar situation. They paid Deebo Samuel. Now they're trying to figure things out with Brandon Aiyuk. So maybe that's a place to go. But haggling for $2 million it feels like just a quick way to botch this entire situation. I will, just to be fair.
It's a binary. It's yes or no, right? Like you're not, I don't know if you're haggling over, are we paying him 30 or, at 28 we say yes, but at 30 we say no. I don't know if it's that. I think it's like we have an understanding for what wide receivers cost. We've seen enough in this market. We know they cost around this range of money. And you're going to try to, nickel and dime and get that price down as much as you can via negotiation. That's the game. But like, you're deciding if you're paying this guy or not. And with whatever you're going to do with Brock Purdy on the horizon, and we'll see what that ends up being. I guess that's what they're saying is, well, if we do this, we can't pay Brock Purdy, which I don't think is true, but I guess that's where their head is at. It just feels a little bit like you're being a little bit too afraid to be great.
Yeah. That's a really great way to put it. I will mention this too. In this year's draft, San Francisco 49ers drafted Florida wide receiver Ricky Pearsall. They also drafted Arizona wide receiver Jacob Cowing. Both those guys, great yards after catch threats, all these other things. So I wonder how much maybe their potential factors in. But man, if I'm talking potential versus proven, I'm going with proven every single time. And so if I'm San Francisco,
a bird in hand and all.
Right. If I'm San Francisco, I'm trying to get this done. And if they can't, then boy, whoever ends up with Brandon Aiyuk is going to be one happy NFL football club. That's for sure. All right, coming up next, a little bit less wide receiver drama now in Cincinnati. T. Higgins sticking around, but probably only for the 2024 season. We're breaking all of that down with some help from our friends over at Locked On Bengals here as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On NFL, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of Locked On NFL is brought to you by FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. Look, the NBA playoffs are over, NHL almost over, but that doesn't mean that betting season is over. We still got MLB, we still got WNBA, we still even have all kinds of NFL futures. For example, the Falcons, favorites to win the division. If you don't trust Kirk Cousins, get on in there. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. And you can get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. So go find any easy money line, some minus 1,000 prop bet, put down $5. You can get 40-1 odds on that $5 bet, regardless of what the odds actually are. You're not going to find that anywhere else. So go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
All right, everybody, continuing on with today's episode of Locked On NFL. Thank you very much for being here with us. T. Higgins is sticking around in Cincinnati, at least for 2024, but he has set himself up for a massive payday in 2025. We appreciate you very much making this your first listen of the day here on Locked On NFL. Don't forget to go and check out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 stream, which you can find for free on YouTube, the first of its kind when it comes to national sports. 24/7 streams on YouTube. All the biggest stories around the league covered by the people that know the teams the best, the local experts, the folks that actually, cover the teams. None of the yelling and screaming and arguing and all that stuff. Just facts from the local experts. But you go check it out over at Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or on the free Amazon Fire TV channels at part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Luke, the Cincinnati Bengals have at least kind of culled some of their drama or calmed some of their wide receiver drama. For 1 year with one wide receiver, T. Higgins has signed his franchise tender, and so therefore has been signed for the 2024 NFL season. It's got to feel good if you're Cincinnati to at least get this done and get it out of the way, right?
Maybe. I don't know if I agree, actually. Yeah. I think this kind of sucks for Bengals fans because I think most Bengals fans want T. Higgins to stick around, right? Like, I mean, I don't know. We'll
I would agree on that from the fan perspective for sure. But the team wants this noise done more than anything else.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they fix the problem. It just means that they've kind of decided not to. That's what this is to me. Like,
I think that's the thing.
When you have this sort of situation, we franchise tagged a player, he's not signing it, he wants a contract, and then he says, okay, like after the whole thing, you tried to get a contract done, you stared at each other forever, camp is on the horizon, and he says, okay, I'll sign it. He ain't coming back. This is the last year of T. Higgins in Cincinnati. That's it. And that to me signals that the Bengals have chosen not to pay T. Higgins. So we have, again, you're saving your money to lose a good player. And T. Higgins is he's going to be the top receiver on the market next year. No, they're giving up a great free agent, right? Who else is hitting the market?
I guess it depends on how things go with Aiyuk, but yeah, I would imagine so.
True.
He would be the guy, Aiyuk's on his 5th-year option, so if they just decide, hey, we're gonna.
Well, they could tag him too if they wanted to. Yeah,
right.
But he's going to be a top free agent. He's going to make a ton of money on the open market. This is fine for T. Higgins. Okay, I'll live through 1 year. And as long as I don't get hurt, I'm going to go hit the market as one of the top targets for anybody. He's going to be at the top of everybody's list. Top 5 free agent. He's going to make tens of millions of dollars. And the Bengals are going to sit there and watch him go. To me, this is we failed to get this done. So here's our temporary solution so that the media can stop breathing down our necks for 10 seconds. But ultimately, the root cause of the issue here is the same. And it's really hard to imagine it not leaking right over into next year's Ja'Marr Chase negotiations. The problems with the Bengals and cash flow and in their willingness to spend. It's really hard to imagine that not affecting Ja'Marr Chase. Now, maybe they are letting T. Higgins go specifically because they know they have to pay Ja'Marr Chase, but it's still that team in particular has been so reticent to spend money on burgeoning superstars. It's really difficult to see that not affecting that future negotiation as well. So I don't know if I'm a Bengals fan. Yeah, I'm a little happy that the annoying media stuff is going to be over, but I don't see this as a win. I see this as just a delayed L. This is like scoring a touchdown to lose by 7 insteed of 14.
Yeah, it's a really good.
Chris Paul hits big lead, big three, right. Lead to 42. Yeah,
that's the lead to 42. Yeah, absolutely. The thing is I don't think the Cincinnati Bengals are bothered by that. I think that at this point, Cincinnati just kind of wants the talk to be over. They want T. Higgins to play in 2024. And I genuinely believe that there is some holdout maybe of the Cincinnati Bengals kind of going, you know what? He plays in 2024. We play well. He'll come back in 2025 or whatever. And they're going to do the thing that the NFL teams do sometimes. And they're going to bet on a hometown discount that's never going to show up. That's never going to show up. And teams do this all the time. And so I think that eventually you're right. I think T. Higgins is on a new team in 2025. But I don't think that Cincinnati is bothered by that at all. Cincinnati.
Did you hear that?
Team, the organization. Is somebody?
I think I just heard a window close.
Oh gosh! Oh no!
Ugh.
Oh, was that the Burrow window that we were leaving
Maybe.
open? Oh,
yeah,
man, that really.
I liked the draft, but I think I just heard it slam shut.
What's really
sorry, I don't respect you if you don't pay your superstars. Pay your good players. Spend money.
Yeah,
it's what it's for.
I don't disagree with you. I just think the Cincinnati Bengals probably do because this has been their MO from the very beginning, right? This is what they've always done. It's just like we were talking about, like their cash flow issues have been.
Enjoy your wild card exits.
That's it, man. Like it stinks because it was such a promising franchise all of a sudden, and now like little decisions like this. I'm so interested to see too. Like this all started with. Didn't all start, but a lot of this got maximized by a T. Higgins trade request. And remember, there was also the Trey Hendrickson trade request. It's the starting defensive end, their sack leader as well. So, like, where does his next situation end up kind of impacting all of this as well? I don't know. It's interesting. I want to jump to our friends over at Locked On Bengals real quick. James Lisco as well as Jake Lisco and James Rapine. Because it's so interesting to me hearing them talk about what this signing means and just how underwhelming the actual benefit of getting this done really is.
It means the first thing is there's going to be a little less drama this training camp. There's going to be a little less chirping over the next month. And that chirping doesn't necessarily mean that it would have been T chirping, but just rumors, discussion, all of those things. It kind of comes to an end here. All in all, this is good news for everyone. And it's just like this is nicer than speculating about T and when he's going to show up for camp and what day he's going to show up. We know when he's going to show up, and that's great news.
Yeah, the implication of signing the franchise tag today, the most obvious implication is that he will be there for all of training camp. If he did not want to attend all of training camp, he would have just waited like Jesse Bates did, to sign the franchise tag until he was ready to show up in practice. By signing the franchise tag today, if he doesn't show up to training camp, he's now subject to fines. So literally no reason to sign the franchise tag today if he didn't intend on being there for all of training camp. That is unexpected.
Okay, Luke, I'm going to ask you a question. If the best thing to come from getting any kind of agreement done, okay, tender contract, 1 year, long-term, short-term, whatever, if the best benefit to getting a contract with a star player done is that they're going to attend training camp, did you really achieve anything as an organization?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of see where James and Jake are coming from, because like that's the thing right in front of you. It's the most immediate benefit, and I'm also very sympathetic to the relief of not having to deal with like media talking about it anymore.
100%.
I get it. Yup. Totally get that. But yeah, it's that. I mean, yeah, that's the thing. It's like the long-term future of the Bengals didn't get better. They just got a little bit less annoying right now.
And perhaps more importantly to the Cincinnati Bengals, they got a little bit less annoyed right now. Like that's really all that this was, right? Like they hit the snooze button on the alarm, but in 5 minutes it's going to go off again. So they
decided to let him walk into free agency. They just deferred that decision.
Yeah, it is a step towards no solution, and that's where the Cincinnati Bengals might be living for a little while, and that's really, really unfortunate for Bengals fans who have been waiting for these days of top level competition. Coming up next, believe it or not, that wasn't our yike of the week. We're going to get to our yike.
I got two of them.
We're going to get to
I'm feeling
our
spicy.
Yikes, plural, and one of our likes, what we didn't like and what we did like upcoming from this week. Leading off, of course, with Carolina, who just can't seem to win anything. We got that coming up for you as we continue on and wrap up today's episode of Locked On NFL, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, everybody, wrapping up today's episode of Locked On NFL with the Carolina Panthers, who on the field, off the field, or with no field, just can't seem to get any kind of a win. We appreciate you very much for being here. Don't forget that we are here for you every single day. We are your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it. And so James, who you just heard a little bit from here just a while ago from over at Locked On Bengals, he and Chris Carter will be answering the biggest questions from around the National Football League in tomorrow's episode. So make sure you come back for that. Luke, why don't you kick us off with your first yike today? Take us over to Mint Street, which, we'll see.
Yeah. So there is an article in SB Nation by James Dator about the Carolina Panthers in some, I don't want to call it financial trouble because it's not like they're struggling. This is a can't or won't situation. But okay, so here's the gig. The Carolina Panthers want to renovate Bank of America Stadium. David Tepper wants to renovate Bank of America Stadium, and he wants public money to do that. The polling has it about 60-40 no for the Carolina residents to help the Teppers renovate Bank of America Stadium. And there are two reasons for this. One, nobody's excited about your track team. And then two, I'm sorry, be serious.
You really are in a bad mood today.
Sorry, the Panthers have like taken the Lions. So this is my thing. There is always a team, right? It was the Lions for a long time. The Lions are serious now. They're good. They have a vision. They pursued it. I respect that. Good for you. I'm still going to hate on you. You're a divisional rival, but I'm going to do it in a lot worse faith now, which is what it's meant to be. And that's the thing that I do out of respect, right? I don't pretend you don't exist anymore like I did for my entire life leading up to that. Carolina, you don't exist. I'm sorry. You don't exist until you do. So nobody's excited about you. But two, the renovations are not very exciting at all. They're basically a new coat of paint, a little bit of redo of the concrete, maybe some, different, like maybe a new little annex that we don't even know what it's for, security upgrades. It's like when you get like the patch notes to a software and there's no real new features. It just says bug fixes.
Yeah, it's bug fixes. Yeah.
And the Tepper's argument is, the Tepper ownership group's argument is, hey, you have money in the city budget for like tourism stuff. This is a tourism thing. Give us that money. But like, what are you going to do? Hey, come see a Panthers game. We got new concrete. Like, it's just, the whole thing is a very blatant cash grab. It seems like Carolina residents are not falling for this. And this kind of dispute, we want money for a new stadium, you're not going to give it to us, can really quickly balloon into we want a new stadium and we don't have to stay here to get it. And so the title to that article was like, they're hurtling toward relocation. I think that's maybe a little dramatic, but that if it were to happen, this would be the first step along that path. And it's very clear that David Tepper needs to get a sense of perspective for exactly what he has given to Carolina as the owner of the Carolina Panthers, and what exactly they owe him in return, which in my opinion is not much. I think if you're a Panthers fan, you should be beside yourself.
Yeah, get ready for the Bryce Young experience, London. It's coming.
San Antonio, Bryce Young.
San Antonio was the other one I was thinking about too.
Or Birmingham.
That's pretty wild though. I mean, it feels like, I don't know, there's something about Bank of America Stadium being called Bank of America Stadium and its inability to come up with money, but I'll let somebody else smarter than me come up with that joke. I'll jump to my yike. We'll keep it negative because I know you've got two yikes today. And remember, this is where we go over our yike and our like what we liked, what we didn't like from the week. My yike is a personal yike. I'm going to say a lot of names. It's not about any of them. It's about me. It's about you, Luke. It's about you. You know what I mean? It's about all of us here. The NFL posted a photo of former Steelers stars, Plexico Burress, Ike Taylor, and Jerome Bettis, all standing behind their sons, who are all now committed to playing college football with Notre Dame. This is your old call, and it's coming from inside the house, and I apologize. But goodness gracious, like not what I expected to see today.
Put him 2006 about?
Yeah,
like babies around their playing career? I suppose that makes sense.
It's just insane. So that was really one of the first moments. There have been those moments a little bit, like seeing Joey Porter Jr. get drafted and all these other things. Like there have been those little moments, right? Brendan Rice getting drafted and whatever. But those were guys that their dads were a little bit ahead of my time. Plexico Burress, Ike Taylor, Jerome Bettis. That's right there, like right on the cusp of like really like when I started to love the NFL. And now seeing their kids going to Notre Dame. It's not drafted yet. I still got a couple more years. But man, it's on the way. And if you're wondering if you're old, yes, you're old. Yike.
Yeah. Well, time comes for all of us, and it's not going to stop and wait for you to smell the roses. Speaking of time leading to the death of things, Hard Knocks fell off, man. I'm going to say
big
it.
time,
I know
man.
nobody wants to hear it, but I'm going to say it. I've got a lot of gripes with Hard Knocks. So they just announced that they're going to have their in-season version of it this year. We'll follow an entire division instead of just one team. I actually don't hate that decision just because it's like really weird to do this when you like kick on week 8 and you like load into a 1-7 team. Like, yeah, there's a chance that like you're not going to be, it's a different kind of thing. Although I do think that Hard Knocks maybe was at its best when it did the in-season thing with the Rams in a season like that.
Yeah, that's true.
But and like saw things fall apart in the turmoil. That was really good TV. I thought that was one of the best seasons of or that was All or Nothing. I apologize, but that kind of thing can work.
Right. Yeah.
But here's the thing: Hard Knocks has just sort of become another football media entity because it has become too controlled by the Shield. It's like the Jets was about Aaron. The whole Jets everything last year was about Aaron Rodgers, and Hard Knocks was supposed to be. And if you go back to the original Jets, the 2010 Jets season, that really was, I think, the best season in Hard Knocks history. It wasn't as much about the superstars. It was about the little guy, and they will always stop and like say hi to someone who gets cut. But it used to be about the journey and the grind of camp, and I guess the trials and tribulations of a guy trying to make an NFL football team and realize the dream. And I was so inspired by that when I first came across it many, many years ago that I created what is now what I'm doing on Locked On Vikings called the Everyman series, inspired by that idea on Hard Knocks. Please go check it out. It's a lot of storytelling. But now it feels like something that would play if you turned on a Monday Night Football game too early and you saw one of those like super overproduced documentary segments about like the head coach losing his house in a hurricane or something like that. And it all reads so insincere and fake. I have all kinds of gripes about Hard Knocks falling off. And now it is not surprising that they're trying all kinds of other new gimmicks to try to recreate that spark when in reality, they lost their heart and their soul.
Yeah. It's just not what it used to be for sure. And then they chose the AFC North, which was also an interesting choice.
Yeah, I would have gone a different direction with that one because you've got an issue to deal with immediately. You could have dodged that by picking anyone else.
Right. Yeah. I really like the idea. I was hoping it was going to be the NFC East. Just competitive division, young quarterbacks. NFC North would have made a lot of sense too. Rookie quarterbacks, like all the other stuff. Great storyline.
I know.
Love like.
I know that like because of Skip Bayless, people get really sick of hearing about the Cowboys, but I do think the Cowboys are in such a compelling place for documentary TV right now because there's so much pressure on them. That build has been around for long enough, and it is truly like put up or shut up. And that kind of pressure, I think, makes for a good setting to bring in a hidden camera and see how things go down.
Yeah. Speaking of wide receiver drama, which we covered a lot of today, CeeDee Lamb. Let's see what happens there. All right, I'll wrap us up here with my like. We'll wrap up on a good note. My like goes to New Orleans Saints running back Jamal Williams, who appeared on one of the network shows out there.
Hard Knock superstar Jamal Williams.
Yes, that's true. Couple of insiders, and the entire time that he's doing this interview, to where he's talking about like the Saints' new offense and Alvin Kamara's contract dispute and all this other stuff. Jamal Williams has always been to me a very relatable person. His love of like things like anime and Pokemon and just like I see him in the locker room. He's just a very normal person. You know what I mean? Very accessible, all these other things. But as he's doing this interview, the thing that I think made him most relatable is the entire time he's doing the interview, his smoke detector low battery is chirping. And it was just the greatest. It's just so
me
because I'm like, yeah, dude, same. Like, if I had
I'll get that later.
Ceilings, like you're not gonna just climb up there and do it yourself. Yeah. Like you got to get somebody to come and do that. And so I just want to know, and I'll ask him. I want to know though, like how long it's been going on. Was it something that just started the day of the interview and he just kind of went, look, guys, this is what we have to deal with today? Or if he is just like the rest of us and just kind of said, yeah, I'll get to it later, and never got around to it. I can't wait to find out that answer. Bring that back to the show. So relatable. Absolutely love it. Shout out Jamal Williams. Oh, man.
Beautiful.
I love it. All right, y'all. We appreciate you very much for being here for another episode of Locked On NFL with Luke Braun and I. Don't forget, Locked On NFL will be back tomorrow. James and Chris breaking down all the biggest stories from around and answering all the biggest questions from around the National Football League. And of course, we'll be back with you next week as well. We appreciate you very much, as always, for making Locked On NFL a part of your day, for being an everydayer, and for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.